Hello, everybody, and welcome to a little bit of a different type of video today. I'm going to be talking about something you can apply from the game of poker to Magic the Gathering. I think it's a really cool lesson, a really interesting one, and something that can really help you think about the game in a better way. Before I dive in, though, I do want to remind you that if you enjoy the video, remember to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment with your questions, thoughts, feedback, what you think of this sort of topic, because I was considering making a little mini series where I talk about other games and things you can learn from those for Magic the Gathering. Also, before anyone comments, yes, you can see my closet behind me. Those are my nice shirts. But that's just the way my dorm is laid out. I don't really design interiors of buildings these days. I just use the tools I'm given. But let's dive on in. So, if you've never played poker before, it's essentially a card game where everyone starts with a certain number of chips, and the goal is to win chips from your opponent. Now, oftentimes people play for money, and the chips represent real dollars or things like that. And you don't necessarily play until someone runs out of chips. You just get some of their chips, and then you end up with a little bit of money from the experience or losing a little bit of money from the experience. And basically, one of the key things about poker is you play a series of hands, and hands have a various amounts of strength. But you don't know how strong the hand is until the very end when people show their cards, or if people end up folding and leaving the hand, you don't get to see the cards that they were ending up playing with. So you can sometimes win a hand with a very weak set of cards that your opponent would have had you beaten if they showed it off, but you ended up scaring them out by betting a lot of chips or something like of that nature. And sometimes your opponents will stick with you to the very end because they have a good hand as well, and then you end up winning a lot of money because you both have good hands and yours is slightly better, or things like that. So there's different ways to win chips, manipulate the chips. But one of the things that is very important in poker is that when you have a good hand, you want to use it to get the most chips possible. And when you have a bad hand or a medium hand, or one of the hands that's really tough to play, where you're probably going to lose, but you still have to stick it out because the odds are like decent for you or something, you want to lose as little as possible with those hands. So you want to maximize your wins and minimize your losses, which is something that ends up in the long run giving you a profitable poker strategy. Because if you are playing and view your successes or failures in the short run, you could have a series of very good hands and win a little bit each time and be like, wow, I'm a great poker player. I'm winning money, and I therefore must be good. But if you're thinking you're good when you're winning a little bit each time and you have these very good hands, when you have the bad hands, you're going to be losing maybe more than you were winning, and you end up as a negative poker player overall because your entire range is not positive. You're not gonna, if in the long run, when your hands are roughly 50 percentile and your hands are roughly as good as everyone else's, you're not going to be winning the money in those situations. So you're therefore not going to be a great poker player, because the great poker players are able to win over the long run when all of the hands are considered, and it's not just a coin flip on whether or not they're going to win. Now, in Magic the Gathering, you might think, well, Magic the Gathering's not played that way, it's not for chips or things like that, but a lot of the time I see comments like, oh, I got super unlucky, so I went 2-3, or oh, I did really well and my deck was 7-2. But the real question you should be asking yourself is not what the final record was, but how did you play with the tools you were given? So was your deck incredibly good, and did you underperform the way that you could have done? Did you have a very poor deck that then ended up getting a good record? Because not all 4-3 records are created equal. If I open up a bomb rare that's on color, all 3 packs, and I get past a lot of cards and I have decent luck, and I still manage to go 4-3, then that means that I must have been approaching the game a little bit off, or something of that nature. On the other side, if I have a very tough draft where I have to abandon the bomb rare that I have, and I have to just scrap it out with a couple of mediocre playables, and I get to 4-3 with that deck, that could be a really nice accomplishment. And it's not just about what your final record is, it's about how you play and how you maximize your good situations and minimize the difficult situations. This can also come up in the game, where you have a spot where you can go for the greedy line, where it's high risk, high reward, or you can go for the more like the line that plays around some of your opponent's potential combat tricks. Maybe make a double block instead of the exact greediest blocks, and play around some of their spells and make better plays that maybe minimize the downside while having a similar amount of upside. And so these are the sorts of things where it's not just about on an individual level how one draft went. It's about how you can overall do better, and you're not always going to have the tools to do an incredible to make an incredible run and get the max wins. If your metric is getting max wins is good, getting few wins is bad, then you're going to be evaluating yourself incorrectly, and it's going to lead to some feels bads in situations where you really shouldn't feel bad, because not all drafts are created equal. You can't always go 3-0 in every single like competitive draft you're doing, or you can't always get to max wins, or you can't always climb the ladder as fast as you would like, because sometimes variance isn't on your side, sometimes the cards aren't on your side, and sometimes you're just not going to be dealt, like the archetype that you have to draft because that's what's open is not as powerful as the most powerful archetype. So you're just facing decks that are a little bit better than yours. The key is, just like in poker, to maximize the good and minimize the bad. And I think that is a really nice takeaway that you can apply to Magic. And it just changes the way you think about the game. All of a sudden, your losses are not just, oh, I lost that game. It's more of a, well, could I have done something to avoid that loss? Is my deck really good and I just kind of messed it up? Or was my opponent's deck just better? I didn't have the tools I needed to succeed on that hand, and I did the best that I could. It's all about doing the best that you can rather than just focusing on the end result. And sometimes you might think the other way. You might think, well, this deck did well, but could I have done even better? Did I have the tools to succeed? Did I have a combat trick that blew me out that I could have played around? And that's how you really get long-term improvement. So that's going to do it for this video. If you made it all the way to the end, leave hashtag card game lessons, because poker and Magic, they're both card games, and you get to learn some lessons from both of them. Also, let me know what you think of this sort of video. It's a little bit different from what I typically make, but I enjoyed making it. It's just something that I've been thinking about a lot. It just rattles around in my head, these thoughts, and I figured I would share them with all of you because you might find them helpful. That is going to do it for this video, though. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it, and I will talk to you next time.